What is going on? You are listening to TAGSPodcast, aka Talk About Gay Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Steve V, and this is episode 290. Today, alongside Jeremy Ross Lopez. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing really good as we record this Monday night. How was your weekend?
It was very good. Got lots and lots of sun. Super tan. We are trying to get all the good weather in because we had a very rainy summer so
Yes.
far. So I'm very excited for the recent sunshine.
Yeah, I know you went to the beach. I went to the beach this weekend as well. I had what I consider kind of the perfect 24 hours. I've done this before. I went to Fire Island here in New York and in Long Island, and I took advantage of this group that we've had on the show before, MMX, Male Massage Exchange. You guys could check it out at mmxnyc.com. And they're a really great organization that you can learn about massage. You can trade massage with, it's an online platform, so kind of a social media thing. And then they offer classes on yoga, naked yoga, fitness, and then more sexy section like tantra, edging classes and so forth. And then they do fun stuff on the island, like a full moon naked party, which is kind of cool. And the one I took advantage, they had a pool party jockstrap on Saturday, and they were looking for a volunteer in exchange for a room for the night. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to try and take advantage of that because how fun would that be? Let me tell you, I had so much fun. I went to the underwear party in Cherry Grove at the Ice Palace Friday night. The house I stayed in, the boys, all shout out to everybody that I stayed with that were so accommodating, and I met so many fun people. I went the day of the party. The setup was really easy, and then I had all day at the beach, and so I had. If you checked out our social media, I had an umbrella, a chair. I was like good to go. I got in the water. I got some sun, and then the party. I had shout out to Kel and Kyle who worked with me at the clothes check. Let me tell you, it was a jockstrap pool party from 5 to 9 that the jocks came off around 7 o'clock and plenty of hot
Of
sex
course they
going
did.
on. More to come on the after show this week. You can get extra special content and take advantage of that because I will be sharing some of the stories. But I had such a blast and got back on the ferry. I mean, it was the perfect 24 hours in the Pines that made my hot vac summer. So super happy about
Love
that.
that.
Yeah, really great. All right, well, let's get into it. A little bit later in this show, I've got an interview with director Michael Thomas of his brand new documentary, Jamel and Tim. And it's essentially playing, it's at Outfest, played yesterday, but you can watch it virtually right now for the next couple of days. But he will be making the festival rounds, and it will have a release called Jamel and Tim, basically about Ed Buck, who took advantage of various people, often African American gay men, and injected them often with meth, and it's just
Wow.
crazy story. But this actually focuses on Jamel and Tim, who didn't make it, but it's a really moving, important documentary. And stay tuned for that interview coming up a little later in this episode. Well, we've got some news to report. Jeremy and I were just talking about PrEP offline before we got on this call, and Gilead, who makes various versions of them, just put out 2 of our HIV drugs were tampered with. And essentially, Gilead announced this morning that there have been tampered with and counterfeit versions of the company's HIV treatment drug Biktarvy and its HIV treatment and prevention drug Descovy, all circulating in the US. And the company said in a statement that distributors that were not authorized by Gilead to sell its brand of medication had sold the counterfeit drugs to pharmacy where Gilead drug bottles had been tampered with. Um, And you can imagine how serious this can be because they still don't exactly know what the counterfeit drug was, Jeremy. But the
Wow.
other thing is, if it was just like a placebo, and here you are thinking you're taking it for preventative reasons, you
Right.
weren't getting that.
Right.
People should just look at the pills. Essentially, Gilead described authentic Biktarvy tablets as purplish brown capsule shaped pills with the number 9883. So again, if you have Biktarvy, make sure that they're purplish brown capsule shaped pills with the number 9883 on one side, and the other one, Descovy, that we were talking about, should be blue and rectangular with the number 225 on one side. So again, Descovy, blue and rectangular with the number 225 on the other side. And those who may have received the fake or tampered bottles are asked to report the medicine to their doctor and pharmacy and encouraged to contact Gilead. That's just crazy,
That
right, Jeremy,
is.
when you hear about that?
It's scary. I mean, only because if you didn't know and then you, like you said, and you're thinking that you're protecting yourself, and it's just like very nerve-wracking to know that that situation is out there and that that happened.
Yeah, right. For a lot of reasons. And what, by the way, were you even taking? Is
Exactly.
the other question, too. So, a lot of questions. I just hope that everybody, I know this news story was making the waves. I hope that even by us sharing with you, just take a look at your bottle. I know that mine, I have a generic version of the one I'm taking right now. It's neither of those two, and I know at one point I had a chance to switch over to Descovy, and you just did a little more research, and I decided to have my doctor keep me on this generic version that I'm currently on. But yeah, just keep an eye out for that, or look at your bottle and just make sure everything's copacetic because we want you
Hmm.
to remain safe. Well,
Definitely.
you know how we give advice on this show, sex and relationship advice. And I wanted to report in about somebody that we gave advice to who wanted to, we always ask you if you can follow up, if like what's going on now. And to refresh your memory, the guy initially wrote into us and he said he's 33-year-old gay cis guy who's really struggling with dating. During college, he did a lot of dating around, but didn't enter anything overly serious until after college. And since then, he wrote, at the time, I've been in two serious relationships. And this was the one where he said the first was 4 years long and the other about three. But he also told us that both of those relationships were toxic. They were both mentally and physically abusive and were addicts, meth to be more specific. He said, I drink and smoke pot, but have rarely done anything more, and I've never used meth. And in the 3.5 years since, he spent a lot of time working on building myself up and building my life. And he said he's not a perfect 10, but he's good looking. He works full time, owns his own home and car, loves to travel and camp with my dog and friends, and I'm ready to start dating again. But he asked at the time, he had no idea how to begin. He wrote that the apps have been great for sex, but anytime I meet someone from the apps or from anywhere, I freeze up and it becomes incredibly awkward for everyone involved. And he wanted some advice on how to relax and enjoy these dates and how to keep my anxiety down while on these dates. So, do you remember that one when he wrote
I
in?
do,
And
yeah.
you gave some great advice, I remember, about the park and so forth. And I wanted to just shout out to you, Mike. We'll call you Mike here, because he wrote back in and he said, hey guys, so I wanted to follow up. I've been on a few dates and even a few second dates. I've done a mix of park walks with my dog, and sometimes there's theirs if they have one, and a few coffee dates, he also wrote. I remember you gave that advice too.
Hmm.
Your advice has helped keep things calm and casual and minimized my anxiety through it all. He wrote, thank you so much for the advice. You have no idea how much I appreciate not only your advice, but also your podcast in general. Well, thank you, Mike. That's really awesome to hear. And I'm really glad some of our advice was put to good use, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, I love that. I'm so happy that it came in handy, and uh, we did give a bunch of like different choices, not choices, but just different ideas what could work organically and make someone feel comfortable.
Yeah, and in rereading it again, it's just, when I can often, especially as things started opening up post pandemic, or the pandemic we're still in, I guess, but as things started opening up again, I noticed, like, with those large parties, not necessarily like the party I worked, but parties that I may have gone to in the past, like circuit events, I found myself saying no to a lot of those because I feel those give me anxiety.
Hmm.
And it's an easy one to avoid because they're kind of expensive. So I'm not really mad at that. But yeah, anxiety is a real thing and we all have it in different ways. And finding ways to minimize it is always a good thing. So thanks, Mike, for writing back in and keeping us posted. We appreciate it. In other advice, somebody just wrote in earlier today and they wanted some advice. I'm going to read it. They said, I really enjoy your shows, and here is my issue. So, I usually use the apps for hookups, and I am a top, and I would say a very hung top. All right, now. I meet a bottom on the app. I usually host. I have met several men who are just not active bottoms. They just lay there with no feedback, or they're just simply there to get fucked and nothing else. So in other words, he writes, no oral, nothing. And in several encounters, he wrote, I have even faked coming just to end it all. So since I found them on the app, or in some cases we have exchanged cell numbers, they keep hitting me up for another hookup. I usually tell them I'm busy or not in the hookup mood, but they keep contacting me. Since they know where I live and or my number, I don't want to be rude. And his question is, how can you tell a hookup that I'm just not into it without them showing up at my house? And he writes in parentheses, this has happened before and it's very uncomfortable. Signed, a nice top guy. Wow. Kind of a lot there to unpack. First of all, Jeremy, before we get into some more advice, I know you like to top, and can you relate to anything what a nice top guy writes of just the person, the bottom, just lying there and maybe not being an active bottom?
Yeah, I definitely can. I think it's always nice to get some sort of reaction, and I totally understand where he uh, is, like, that situation makes him somewhat annoyed, or he doesn't want to repeat it because of the way that it was in the past. And I do definitely enjoy knowing that someone is really enjoying it. And I think also clearly, with some of the people that he said are still contacting him, they obviously did enjoy it. But I do understand the annoyance when you're in the moment of having no response and someone just laying there. And definitely the foreplay aspect of it is, if that's missing or just not there at all, non-existent, uh, that's something that I agree with him, I wouldn't be interested in another time. But I also think, I always resort back to communication as key. And I think letting someone know beforehand and before they come over that you're really big into something, or you just really enjoy something, does help. And I also think it always helps to be honest in sexual situations with someone as well. But I do also know that some of the conversations to have can be very awkward at times. So I can understand where sometimes you just want to brush it off and, like, make up little white lies. uh,
Right.
One thing that I've used in the past is the excuse that I'm casually dating someone more seriously. It doesn't always work because some people are relentless and they just won't give
Right.
up. But that is definitely a white lie that I've used in the past, of just someone that, like, won't get a clue or won't give up, or that I just don't have any interest in, but I don't want to be rude. So that's just something that most guys will respect and just back off. Or I don't know, it's just, for me, that's been an excuse that's worked in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting because as somebody myself, as more of a bottom that can be versatile and top at times when if this person has it sounds like a really hung top, and that would be somebody that I would be looking for. And typically for me, just to put myself on that spectrum, is I'm all about, if you're a hung top, then I want to suck it beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And get, because the reason I went for you possibly was because I love the, a dick, and I don't just want to get fucked by it, I also want to like play with it and suck it. And so it's surprising that some people would just be all about the pounding and then that's it, and then coming back for more. Um, in terms of, I think you're right. Communication, definitely. So I think for a lot of these guys, make sure your profile says, you like to be sucked and some foreplay, or you don't want a lazy bottom, you can put it in there. And even if people, I think the in the communication with new people, you could just say that too in the conversation, right? So you
Right.
could say with, say, a new person that you're communicating with, hey, so are you into it? Yeah. You want to get fucked? Yeah. Well, I love getting my dick sucked. And kind of a good bottom in my mind likes to also get good direction. So maybe set the scene a little bit, like, yeah, you're going to come over here and I'm going to be ready with my dick out, and create almost like a whole scene. And I want you to come over here and service for me, and I'll tell you when, I'll tell you how, almost be a good dominant, right? So
Right.
maybe consider taking on a more dominant role, and a good dominant gives good direction, and a good, most bottoms will take good direction if you direct them from the moment it starts on the app to the moment they enter your doorway. To, it could be very specific, like, at, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and you might just have to give them the map, in other words, and the menu, and not skip the appetizer course and go
Mhm.
right to the
Right.
dessert, and so I think if you can take on that dom role and give good direction for new people, and then for those that are wanting to come back for seconds and thirds that weren't all that, I say two things. You can block them, which is a severe choice, right, Jeremy?
Right.
I would definitely block the ones that are showing up at your door or your neighborhood like that. I think that's really uncalled for and scary, to be honest. Don't you think,
Yeah,
Jeremy?
definitely.
Those ones I would definitely, and it might just be a good, that's not cool, like, please don't show up. um
Right. Those ones I feel like your safety is always the most important, and I think those you shouldn't be worried about, like what you would consider rude. You'd have to be honest and be like, it's not cool you showing up without being invited. Like when people take it to a certain extent, you always have the right to your own self-respect and your personal safety.
yeah.
And so I definitely wouldn't have an issue with making that a point to those specific people that just don't take no for an answer, or just don't uh, get a clue or get a grip from what you're saying.
Yeah, that's definitely uncalled for, and put your foot down on that one, because that we are in current scary times where you just don't know who is going to show up and what's going on. And I mean, I just feel like times are a little crazy right now, and so no one needs like a one-time hookup showing up in your neighborhood wandering around. That's just nuts. So, and then lastly, for the ones that maybe hit you up that were deadbeats, and I'm calling them deadbeats, um I would say you can do a couple things. One thing I've done with a lot of them is I just ignore it. I just don't respond
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not interested. And there's a couple people on there when I go on that I've even enjoyed the time with, but I'm not into them for that particular night, or, and they still continuously hit me up. I just ignore them, and, you know, hey, no one can fault you for ignoring them. But if you do decide to give them another chance, then I would spell it out on that
Mm-hmm.
second chance. It would be like, hey, what's up? And say, hey, you could be really honest and be like, hey, I had a good last time, but I'd preferred, I'm really into a little like foreplay. I'm into oral. I'm into you kind of worshiping my cock, being kind of I love it when if there's like be kind of specific
Mm-hmm.
again with the direction. Maybe give them one more chance, and if they don't, then block them. If you really want to give it a try again, if you don't, ignore them, and you always have the option to block people. But
Right.
going forward with new encounters, I feel like you should give I like to use a metaphor for actors because when I was studying acting in my acting days is a lot of actors aren't really good with the just show up and like groundlings just improv it. A lot of actors love good direction, and most
Mm-hmm.
actors are really good. They love a script, they love a good director that is going to help them take it off the page, direct you into giving an ultimate good performance. Now, I know that's really elaborate, but you can take aspects of that, and it's your time, it's your experience, it's your
Right.
home that you're hosting, and you
Mm-hmm.
can also direct the experience. And I was using this word all weekend, experience. Like, I just had a great experience. And even in a hookup, you want it to be a good experience. And
Right.
part of it is, particularly if you're hosting, is help give that person direction. And if they see if they respond to that and make them accountable for that, because that's, and if they're not, then hey, they weren't meant to be there. But I think that will help some of your newer experiences be more enjoyable for you. I don't know. Anything else that you wanted to add to that, Jeremy, or is
No,
that?
I piggyback all of that. I think that completely agree.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck with that. A nice top guy. Oh, you sound great. Let us know how that's working for you. I hope this helps. And if you want sex or relationship advice, we are here for you. DM us on Instagram at Tags Podcast, and we'd be happy to give our opinion on it. We're here for you. All right. Well,
Definitely.
thank you, Jeremy. This has been a lot of fun, as
Of
always.
course.
You can follow Jeremy on his Instagram page at J Ross Lopez, at J Ross Lopez. And I'll talk to you soon, Jeremy. And
Sounds good.
absolutely stay tuned for my interview with Michael Thomas for the film Jamel and Tim. Hey guys, your buddy Steve V here, host of Tags Podcast, and I was just thinking about the time I was in the bathtub dating this guy, asking him to shave my ass, and let me tell you, he was all about it. But when he was going down with the disposable blade, I was so freaked out. Like, what did I get myself into? It was so creepy, and I was so fearful that I had to stop the whole thing the minute I felt a nick. Oh my gosh. Well, now there is something out there that I don't even need somebody to do for me. I can do on my own. Are you ready for an out of the world experience, guys? Well, you have to look no further than the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped that has just taken off in not only the USA, but Canada, the UK, across Europe, Australia, South Africa, and Singapore. And inside the package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your whole solar system. First scheduled for liftoff, new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. This spaceship is here to guide you on a journey to trim your body, balls, butt like I did, and even your anus. That's what I'm talking about. This fourth generation trimmer also features cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a 4000K LED spotlight you can turn on and off when needed for more precise shaving throughout your travels across the universe. And this performance package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker. It's kind of like having a little astronaut to chop your worst weeds up top in your nose and ear. The Weed Whacker is also waterproofed, and this nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which also helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Don't forget about the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver to help your little planets be on their A-games while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts from their Performance Package 4.0. I'm talking about the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Ready, guys? You can get 20% off plus free shipping by using our code here, TAGS, TAGS, by going to manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code TAGS at manscaped.com. For a clean trinity and beyond, your spaceballs will thank you. Well, I'm very excited to have my guest on the show. He is the director, executive producer, cinematographer, and co-editor of a brand new documentary premiering at Outfest called Jamel and Tim. Michael Thomas, thanks for doing the show. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I saw the film, and it's really a hard film to watch, but I loved the film, first off. And just to tell people about your film, this documentary looks at Jamel and Tim's parallel walks of life through the eyes of their extended families, memories, correspondence, things they did and didn't share with each other, and the reasons that led them to their tragic fate. And the film simultaneously investigates the heinous details of the crimes and offers a cautionary tale that can help these events from happening in the future. And through these intimate recollections of their lost friends, each character exposes their own personal journey in dealing with the grief and loss. And of course, we're talking about meth addiction in this. And I remember hearing about the character that's featured in this, Ed Buck, in another film that I was covering called Crystal City, that deals with sort of the recovery. First off, tell me why you wanted to make this documentary about Jamel and Tim, because I know you had sort of a personal relationship with Tim Dean.
That is correct. I play basketball in the Los Angeles Gay Basketball League, the same league where Tim was part of, and also the NGBA, the National Gay Basketball Association. And we met several times. We played several times, and his best friends are my best friends. So it's his death definitely hit home. And I remember when Tim passed, one of Tim's best friends, Alex Herrera, reached out to me to start capturing memories from people like other players, to make sure that all these stories from the history of gay basketball were not going to get lost. And last year, once the Black Lives Matter movement started, that's when I started asking myself, what can I do? How can I contribute? And, I make documentary films, and it didn't take long for me to find a story, because I knew, of course, what happened to Tim. And I looked more into it. I talked about it with my best friend and producer, Michael Franklin, to help me out. And first of all, I of course reached out to his friends from basketball to get their blessing to get started, and once they did, the ball started rolling.
And just to give people a little more perspective, basically in 2017 and 2019, respectively, Jamel Jules Moore and Timothy Tim Dean, 2 gay black men, both died of a meth overdose at the now infamous Laurel Street apartment of Ed Buck, a once influential Democratic donor, businessman, and animal, LGBTQ plus political activist. The deaths sent shockwaves through LA's LGBTQ plus community, and particularly in West Hollywood, LA's gay mecca. I remember just hearing all about this and reading a lot about Ed Buck with so many of the stories, even recently with his recent trial, so much of the focus being on Ed Buck. And I think what your film does in such a wonderful way is shine a light on Tim and and excuse me, your
Jamel.
Jamel, thank you, and really puts a face on these people, not just how they were victims of Ed Buck, but really on their stories. Was that I know that you had a personal connection with Tim, but talk a little bit about how you wanted to portray these two people in your story, in the real life story.
Well, from the beginning, it was clear that we definitely wanted to humanize their stories. And one of the reasons is, like you said, a lot of the press coverage was focused on Ed Buck and all the sensationalized topics. But we didn't really hear of who these people really were. And we thought, by humanizing their stories and giving a little bit of background of who they were and why they made some of the decisions uh, you know that they made, and how they ended up at Ed Buck's place, to give a little bit of context about that could help understanding um, stories like this for the future, so we can help prevent this from ever happening again.
Yeah, and you write that being a part of the LGBTQ plus community in LA, you say that this is a story I'm extremely passionate about for many reasons. And according to the DCD, from 2008 to 2017, the number of fatalities from meth in LA County rose by 707%. And that's approximately one death per day, an alarming trend that you witnessed with your own eyes. And in 2020, you yourself lost a friend due to the meth epidemic. And I'm assuming this is Tim that you're referring to, correct?
No, this was actually someone else. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
yeah, it's showing that it's a very big issue. And these are numbers from 2017, and right before we were going to lock our film, there were actually new numbers that were published that included the years until 2020, and those numbers even skyrocketed even more. So it's very alarming, the trend of the meth epidemic that's going on, not just in LA, but nationwide and worldwide. So I really, really hope that this film helps to shine a light on that issue, so action can be taken.
The other thing that I think is so important is, as we can see, my goodness, with those statistics, it really is preying on the epidemic, is certain people preying on a particular community. In this case, we're talking about the Black gay community. I've heard others mention the trans community. It's obviously affecting so many within the entire acronym of our community, but how important was it to you and in of portraying the Black gay community? And then talk a little bit about what you mentioned before, the timing of just coming out of what's happening right now, Black Lives Matter.
It was very important that those stories were going to be portrayed in the right way. And I'm originally from Belgium. I'm a white filmmaker, and I'm very aware of that.
You're right.
And it was very important for me to surround myself with people who would keep me accountable for telling these stories in the right way. So, first of all, there was my friend Michael Franklin, who came on board as a producer, and we had pretty much had daily conversations and meetings about this. And then there was also Nick Lewis, who was the editor on the film, and she's a black lesbian woman, and also an amazing editor, and part of the ballroom community in New York. So, those were two very important voices to help me tell these stories in the right way. And it was also important that those stories were being told by the people who experienced it and who are experiencing it right now, and not just by some voiceover or an expert I really wanted to hear those stories from the people who were there with Jamel, who were there with Tim, and who witnessed everything with their own eyes.
Yes, and it's so powerful hearing their stories, including even seeing Jamel's mother speak out about her son. But there is a couple of people in the film you feature that are either potentially still struggling with meth or survived Ed Buck. And I'm just curious, how difficult or easy was it to get them to openly speak about their their interactions with Ed Buck and also just with meth?
It was not easy, and we first had conversations prior to the interview. Normally, I would interview, and you don't prepare your questions. You just want authentic, real interviews. Not that those were not authentic and real interviews, but I wanted them to feel comfortable with the questions that I was going to ask, and I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with topics that were off limit or not. And it was very important that they were comfortable throughout this process, because I mean, I don't think that you can get any more personal than the stories that they shared. So it was absolutely crucial for me that they felt comfortable throughout this process. And we prepared prior to the interview, and eventually we did the interview.
Yeah, and I'm glad you, at least in this thing I was reading earlier, you give the statistics, because relapse for people that struggle with addiction, particularly with meth, is a huge issue, and it's shown, without giving away too much in the film, just how one can be addicted to meth, then have success in their lives and be seemingly going down a good path, and then have relapse. I think that was really important that you showed that. Can you just talk a little bit about that? And you show that in those two characters I was talking about.
Well, Sammy, one of Jamel's friends, he gave an excellent example, and I thought it was such a great example to understand the struggles of an addict. It's, you can be sober for a long time, but if there's just a memory or something that is related to those times that you used to be high and you see it when you're sober, your body instantly gives like the a chemical reaction of that high again. So it's very difficult to deal with those feelings, and it's very important that you learn the tools on how to deal with that. And unfortunately, Jamel didn't have those tools yet, and because he made the right choice by going back to Houston, by going back to his mother and his family, where he was staying clean and he was loved and he was in a great place. But unfortunately, he was manipulated to come back, and he fell into that trap.
And Tim, also, we see going down. You do such a good recounting of his story, and he's graduating from college and has a great job and living finally on his own, and everybody seems to be so happy for him. And it's the same similar story of being relapsed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and Tim was a late bloomer. He was at a great place in his life, and friends were aware of his troubles in the past with dealing with addiction, but they were really convinced that he conquered that mountain. But he had a weak moment, and unfortunately, Ed Buck took advantage of that weak moment, and it cost him his life.
Yeah, and I want to just tap really quickly into Ed Buck, because your film, and I understand you made this using often video footage that you had. Obviously, you said you were documenting it for their stories in general about basketball. But in terms of Ed Buck, he just had his trial recently. And how talk a little bit about that, because you include that in this film about up until recently.
Yes, what a roller coaster ride it has been these last couple of weeks. I'll tell you that. Um, yeah, it was. it was kind of a full circle to complete that toward in the end of the film. It was a very hard journey to witness and to be there every day of the trial. Also, getting to know Jamel's family better, and it was very very intense, a roller coaster ride, and to be confronted with all those evidences and videos and photos, and it was mind boggling of what was shown in that courtroom. Um, and then at the same time, yeah, you're under the pressure to finish a film, because the date was set to premiere at Outfest. So we really had to go into overdrive to make it all happen. But luckily, literally last night we finished the film and it's submitted, and it will be ready to screen on Sunday.
Wow, and there is at least some conclusive ending to the story for the family, if there can be, with the outcome of this. I just want to really talk finally a little bit about the style of your film. Two things about it that I really enjoyed is you do such a good job of going back and forth between Jamel and Tim. In other words, of not just showing one story and then going on to the next. And I thought that was a really great way of telling it. If you could talk about that. And then lastly, if you could talk a little bit about the great animated graphics that you show in the film and how that came about.
Sure. First, let me add one little thing to your previous question. Because I mentioned full circle, and I mean, of course, full circle for the film, but it was very important for me to add in the end when Jamel's mother says, the life of my son is more than a film or a documentary, because their life and their pain and their hurt still continues. So I definitely wanted to make the viewer aware of that as well, and that's why it was very important for me to add that in there at the end. Um, and then to answer your next question, yeah, it was a balancing act between both stories, and they had similarities, and that's where it was easier to combine both of the stories of Jamel and Tim into into the same scene. But then they also had their own individual journey, so that those scenes, um, deserve their own individual scenes, where either Jamel or Tim was highlighted. So it was a balancing act, and luckily, again, Nick Lewis, the editor, was great to work with, and that's how we came to those decisions. And the animator, Rami and Dow, is extremely talented, and animation, we knew from the beginning that animation was going to be very important, because some of the topics and some of the content is very, graphic and hard to hear, hard to watch. And we also wanted to handle the subject matter and the content matter with the respect that it deserves. So animation was a way to bring certain memories and certain circumstances to life in a respectful and creative way, and not just in a graphic or sensational way. So that's why animation was very very important.
Well done on that. It's really adds a nice layer to your film. We have to. Your film is at Outfest, and you're screening it this Sunday, August 15th at 4 p.m. in person, and you'll be there, I assume, doing a Q&A.
That is correct.
And what's also great is there's a virtual screening of your film beginning August 16th through August 18th. And I think people just need to go to outfest.org if you want to get tickets to that, so anybody could see it, correct?
Correct.
Thank you so much, Michael. This is your film made such an impact, and I encourage everybody to see it. Again, it's called Jamel and Tim, and congratulations on it being premiered at Outfest.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Tags listeners, craving for more tags? Hungry like I am? Well, now you can unlock exclusive Tags content. I'm talking about our weekly Tags After Show and our twice monthly Dark and Dirty Show. Now you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. You'll get a notice each week when new episodes are dropped exclusively for you. So what are you getting from this exclusive content? Well, you're getting a weekly Tags After Show where the conversation continues with hot gay sex topics in a more relaxed, behind-the-scenes, more intimate format. Our twice monthly Dark and Dirty Show will often feature special guests like my co-hosts, but gets a little darker and a little dirtier as we reveal our sexcapades to your exclusive ears. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe now to unlock exclusive Tags content and know that you'll be supporting Tags Podcast to continue delivering the quality of Tags Podcast you've come to love. You can unlock this exclusive content by going to TAGSPodcast.com and click on the link Tags After Show. Thanks for being a supporter and continue having hot gay sex.